In case you couldn't tell just by looking at me, I play a lot of games. Like, a lot. Like, a bad amount. Like, every single year. In 2024, I played roughly 140, give or take 2 or 3. In 2025, including the few games from 2024 that I continued playing, I played 161. And this year, including the handful of games that stayed in rotation from previous years, I am on track to hit the big 200. Can't call me a fake-ass gamer. I played Highguard, Fragpunk, a third example. And every year, I try to talk about at least a few of the games I played, namely in the form of a dedicated Game of the Year list and a second top 10 list for great indie games that I hadn't talked about in the other video. Other games might get a dedicated video here and there, and I try to at least mention every game I played in a dedicated end of the year roundup. But outside of that, the majority of the games I play never really get any sort of meaningful attention. And that's just a shame. Because out of the nearly 200 games I play each year, way more than just 20 of them are worth talking about. So, in an effort to talk about more games that I like, and since we're halfway through the year anyway, I figured I might as well take the chance to talk about some of my favorite new releases from the first half of 2026. Not necessarily the best games I played or even my absolute favorites so far, those are being saved for December, but more so the games I played that I really enjoyed, but for one reason or another I can already tell they're not making it to the end of the year. Especially in a year as jam-packed as this one. Basically, and in no particular order because I refuse to rank them, these are the games that I'm talking about right now because I don't think I'll get the chance to talk about them later, and I genuinely believe that that would be a shame. Let's get started. Bento Blocks is a cute, cozy puzzle game all about getting your lunch to fit in your lunchbox. It sounds simple, and it kind of is, but what makes this game so interesting is how its simple concept is stretched, warped, and twisted to fill out an entire game and then some. Every puzzle feels like a unique take on the same concept. Every new mechanic feels like an earth-shattering addition, and each individual puzzle feels like it was designed by geniuses. It's the rare example of a puzzle game where just seeing each new puzzle is just as exciting as actually solving them. And I'm really starting to regret my decision to beat this whole game in one sitting, because over 180 unique puzzles just wasn't enough. Because I am craving more, and I genuinely don't think I can handle waiting for DLC or a sequel. But speaking of great new puzzle games, you guys ever find one of those games where, on a conceptual level, its mechanics just should not work at all, but they still consistently manage to anyway? I have. CiniCross is a Picross roguelite, a combination of gameplay mechanics that to any sane person should never work together. For the uninitiated, nonograms are a form of grid-based puzzle that are famously reliant on the very specific and intentional design decisions of their creators, while roguelites are a genre famous for their randomness, luck, and procedural generation. The two concepts exist at opposite ends of the game design spectrum, and when combined, they should, in theory, be a disaster. But the developers behind CiniCross have managed to work a downright insane amount of black magic in order to seamlessly combine the two genres. Would Picross really be considered its own genre? And create something wholly new. A game of infinite, unique, increasingly difficult, and perfectly designed nonogram puzzles that could be played forever and consistently keep me coming back for more, even with all the other Picross-style games that are out there. This is a very impressive feat all on its own, but what is even more impressive is that they also managed to design Picross boss fights, scaling difficulties, alternate pathways, and a series of items and abilities that actually manage to interact with the traditional nonogram gameplay in unique and interesting ways. One of the many reasons that I love experimenting with random-ass indie titles is that every once in a while you will stumble across a game that takes an existing concept and warps and twists it in new and interesting ways that you would have otherwise never thought possible. And CiniCross is very much one of those games, and its developer Hydrobates might just be one to keep an eye on. But moving on from new developers that I want to keep an eye on, let's talk about some games made by seasoned veterans that I've been watching for years. Is a game that I have wanted to talk about for a while, but its incredibly stretched out release schedule makes it ineligible for a Game of the Year list that it would have otherwise been on every single time. And in theory, this year's release of Chapter 5 should also be ineligible for this list, but I very intentionally did not write down any rules, and I'm not starting now. With the release of Chapter 5, Deltarune continues to be, genuinely, one of the greatest games I have ever played. It remains emotionally intense, narratively engaging, comfortingly familiar, and dizzyingly subversive. The music continues to be some of the best in the industry, the character writing continues to make me fall in love with everyone from the mainest of main characters to the guys who only get 1 or 2 lines. The gameplay continues to iterate and innovate in ways that the earliest chapters would have never led you to expect, and the story continues to draw me in with the kindest, sweetest, tenderest, most intimate moments, only to spit in my face and remind me that to trust this game's niceties is to court heartbreak. Even as one of the weakest chapters in the game, and my personal least favorite by a wide margin, Deltarune Chapter 5 does not disappoint, and unsurprisingly continues this game's journey to become one of the greats. And speaking of one of the greats, Mario! I'm gonna need everybody to bear with me for a second, because I am going to be incredibly vulnerable. I like Mario Tennis Fever. It helps, of course, that I was already a fan of Mario Tennis in general, more so than most Mario spin-off franchises. But Fever specifically is also just a really fun game. For starters, it's a Mario sports title with all of its content available at launch, which is perhaps the lowest bar ever, but god does it feel good to watch this team finally clear it. The game has a substantial and meaningful amount of single and multiplayer content, even with its horrifyingly short story mode, some legitimate challenge in both its tower trials and its minigames, a character and court roster that leaves little to be desired beyond my GOAT, a low skill floor and a high skill ceiling, and perhaps the first ever gimmick in a Mario sports game that doesn't suck complete unfettered ass, while also feeling like a creative, well thought out, and somewhat balanced addition to this series. I will admit that I do miss the more intense, aggressive, and competitive playstyle present in Aces, but I do appreciate that this game is making an effort to ensure that players of all skill levels can have fun and feel like they have a legitimate chance at victory even against players at a significantly higher skill level. And I like that I can play this game with my friends without having to worry that they'll be turned off by our 40-hour skill gap. It's also quite possibly the single most fun party game in the Switch 2's exclusive library. At the very least, it's the one that I had the most fun playing with my friends, and the only one that I have whipped out in a group setting more than once in the past 6 months. I'm fully aware that this game has a bit of a reputation, and that it got hit pretty hard in its early reviews because the people reviewing it basically only played the dogshit 5-hour tutorial and then bafflingly didn't touch anything else in the game. But I would argue that even despite its story mode, this is still a very solid multiplayer experience with way more single-player content than the story mode would lead you to expect, some of the most fun I've had with any Mario spin-off ever, and a rare example of a game that I just can't stop thinking about even while I am not actively playing it. And what does that last tidbit say about me as a person? Well, it can't be anything good. And speaking of multiplayer-focused games that I'm enjoying way more than any sane person ever possibly could, Final Sentence seems to be the latest in a long list of games dead set on proving one indisputable fact. Any game regardless of genre, can be turned into a battle royale and be a phenomenal experience. And this one is, of all things, a typing game battle royale. In Final Sentence, you find yourself locked in a mysterious room with 21 other players and are forced to type a series of increasingly difficult pre-made paragraphs as quickly as possible with as few mistakes as possible. Every 3 mistakes sees you playing a game of Russian roulette with increasingly unfavorable odds, and the only person who survives is the person that makes it to the end of the prompt without getting shot. It's a very simple concept, executed to near perfection, and when it's combined with the game's high-stress time limits and genuinely unsettling atmosphere, it becomes a glorious experience, and one that I just keep coming back to, even when most of the lobbies I play in are populated with bots. Final Sentence is, without a doubt, one of the most fun multiplayer experiences I have had in a while, and I truly believe that if this game can just find its audience, it is going to evolve from just another niche indie game novelty into something truly special. And speaking of games that I'm going to verbally refer to as truly special because I don't own a thesaurus, Clean Break! Clean Break is a short, free game about walking into a building, taking out your fists, and smashing every piece of furniture you come across in the hopes of finding something that isn't supposed to be there. It's not the first game to use this concept, nor even the only one I've played this decade, but it does feature a few interesting narrative twists that allow this game to become a truly special experience, if not an entirely unique one. And that is about all I feel comfortable saying. Because the problem with a game this short and this narratively focused is that there is only ever so much you can actively talk about before entering spoiler territory. But here's what I can tell you. Clean Break is a very beautiful and well-written game that has a lot to say about some very universal human experiences, and its story, while short, packs an insane punch that managed to find me at a time when I was the most vulnerable to it. It's a very beautiful game that's about as powerful as any fist, and I honestly cannot recommend it enough. Okay, I'm not doing any more transitions. Here are my big 4. Much like its predecessor Vampire Survivors, Vampire Crawlers can, at times, be a shockingly simple and mind-numbingly repetitive experience that also just so happens to be a work of genius. This game manages to perfectly distill everything that made the original Vampire Survivors so great and transfer it into an entirely new format and genre. It feels like the near-perfect evolution of everything that game did right, combined with so much of what makes deck builders and dungeon crawlers so much fun. This is a game that is constantly bombarding you with new unlocks, new achievements, new levels, and new strategies. It truly feels like there is infinite customization, infinite opportunities, and infinite ways to play. Despite its undeniable simplicity, there is so much content in this game that it is easy to get lost for hours at a time, and I absolutely did, right in the middle of my finals week. It's the type of game that you can boot up for a second and lose entire days to. The type of game that keeps you coming back again and again and again, and the perfect game to turn your brain off to right up until the point where it starts demanding 100% of your brain for every single fight. It's not the best deck builder I played this year. I mean, who could possibly compete with this one? And then, I guess, Slay the Spire 2 came out, or whatever. But it is certainly the one that had the greatest negative effect on my education status and social life. And for that, I will always fucking despise it. And if you already saw me post this review as a completely separate video, or noticed the fact that I'm wearing a completely different outfit, no you didn't. Tomodachi Life is a franchise that I don't have a ton of experience with. I haven't played the original DS game, I didn't get the chance to try the mobile app, and I never really connected with the 3DS title. So when a new Tomodachi Life was announced for the Nintendo Switch, I kind of expected that I'd be picking it up, largely because I'm dressing for the job I want, not the job I have. What I really wasn't expecting was to fall in love with this game as much as I did. Every single day, I log into Tomodachi Life to help out my little me's, see what's new in the stores, and pick up my mystery package. I often start my day with what is essentially a video game chore list, but I don't feel like I'm doing chores. I don't feel like I'm doing live service dailies. I don't feel like I'm in the end game of bum-ass Animal Crossing New Horizons. I feel like I'm coming home to a community of wacky and zany characters, each and every one hand-picked and hand-designed by me. Look! It's Hatsune Miku! Check it out! I made my cat! It's the main character of Guilty Gear! I even get to be friends with Kasane Tato and Don-chan. A game that is essentially three-dimensional Mad Libs, where you slot your closest friends and favorite characters into a seemingly endless series of wacky situations, is such a cool idea, and it's been executed really well. I am having a ton of fun just following these weird little freaks around and seeing what they're up to, listening to what they have to say, giving them gifts, solving their problems, and maybe even torturing them just a little bit. And if the whole game was just this, just dropping characters I like into an existing world and watching them just hang out, it would already be worth the price of admission. But it also has quite possibly the most enjoyable character customization in any game I have ever played. The Mii Maker in Tomodachi Life Living the Dream just rocks. It is so much fun to interact with. The way that the developers have perfectly balanced it by giving you a ton of options while also being incredibly restrictive makes every character I create feel like a puzzle to be solved. A series of unique but similar riddles that all have very different answers. And when I get tired of solving that puzzle, of answering that riddle, the face paint mechanics are basically a sledgehammer, allowing me to smash the walls of the escape room and skip all the puzzles inside. I have not had this much fun with a character creator since I was a child on the Wii, and in a similar vein, I have not been this interested in making just a bunch of freaky randos since I was a child on that same Wii. This game has managed to do the one thing that no other game I have ever played has managed to do. Make me feel naturally nostalgic in a way that does not feel super forced and overly corporatized, and that alone is a massive achievement. So many other character creators are either overwhelming with their intricacies or restrictive with their options, but Tomodachi Life's Mii Maker manages to be both without feeling like either. And the balance it achieves keeps me coming back to it again and again and again, even after I run out of characters to make. I finally get it, guys. Tomodachi Life fucks hard. Pragmata was my most anticipated game of the year, and it absolutely did not disappoint. This is a very interesting sci-fi adventure with a story that is equal parts heartwarming and heartbreaking. A pair of main characters that are very easy to connect to, and even easier to root for, some very impressive and interesting level design in a genre of gaming and storytelling that often struggles to keep its environments unique or even just distinct from one another, and some of the most fluid, enjoyable, and creative gunplay I have seen in a very long time. This is a game with so many fresh and exciting ideas, so many unique takes on established tropes, and so much passion behind its development that I am not even remotely surprised to have enjoyed it as much as I did. It's not often that you play a game and can immediately tell that it is going to be one of those weird, single-entry, cult classic games that people will be talking about for years to come, but Pragmata's destiny feels written in the stars themselves. What a genuinely crazy addition to one of Capcom's best years ever, and what a way to get me excited for every single future title this company could possibly be making. And finally, WaxHeads. WaxHeads is a narrative-focused visual novel shopkeeper simulator where you work at a struggling independent record store and help your customers and coworkers find exactly what they need in whatever form that may take. In case I wasn't fully clear, it's much more coffee talk than trading card shop simulator. Which of course means that this is a very beautifully written game with a story all about life, love, found families, following your passions, and finding your place in the world. The characters are all great, the story is genuinely well written, the puzzle game mechanics of leading customers to the right records is very impressively implemented, but without a doubt, the two best things about this game, the things that truly made me fall in love with it, were the completely original soundtrack comprised exclusively of songs ripped directly out of the fictional records sold in the store, and the deep, overwhelming love for art, music, and all the different subcultures of people who love this medium that is present throughout every part of the game. In every second I spent playing WaxHeads, I was overwhelmed by the passion that this dev team had, awestruck by their love for music and the people they share it with, and captivated by the enjoyment they took in explaining the communities and subcultures that they had so clearly spent their entire lives participating in. It is not often that I play a game that inspires me to change the way I interact with the world around me, but WaxHeads inspired me to dust off my old record player, frequent my local record stores as much as I could afford, and find new ways to fall in love with the music I listen to instead of simply enjoying it. This is, without a doubt, the only game on this list that absolutely would have made it to the end of the year, no contest. And the only reason that I am burning it early is because I just couldn't wait another second to talk about it.